I went hunting for the ankle. First point, I hit a drop shot.
Caty McNally said something about Alex Eala after this
A bit.
match.
I've never in my life felt so much like a visitor at a tennis match I was actually playing.
Alex had rolled her ankle. She was clearly dealing with a physical problem, and for a moment, it looked like McNally had finally found the weakness she needed. But then Alex started doing something completely different. And according to McNally's reaction, that was the moment the entire match changed. So what did Alex do that made an injured player even harder to beat? The answer is not what you might think. And the most interesting part came after McNally realized that attacking Alex's ankle was no longer working. This was not supposed to be the story of the match. Alex Eala entered the battle looking to control the match with her aggressive left-handed game, while Caty McNally came in with confidence and a clear plan of her own. The opening set quickly showed why Alex was dangerous. She was taking the ball early, creating difficult angles, and putting McNally under pressure. Alex eventually took the first set 6-3. But tennis matches can change in a few points. And this one changed dramatically in the second set. Alex rolled her right ankle, and suddenly the biggest question was no longer about her tennis. It was about whether she could physically continue at the same level. The trainer came onto the court. Alex's ankle was taped, and from McNally's perspective, this looked like the opening she had been waiting for. Because when an opponent is struggling to move, there is an obvious strategy. Make the move. Push them into the corners. Extend the rallies. Force them to change direction. Make the injured area work again and again. McNally did exactly that. And for a while it worked. Alex was no longer playing the match entirely on her own terms. McNally fought her way back into the contest and took the second set 7-5. Suddenly, the player who had looked firmly in control was facing a deciding set with an injured ankle. And this is where most people would expect the story to become simple. Alex was hurt. McNally had momentum. The American had already found a way to attack the weakness. So surely the third set would be about how much Alex could survive. But Alex had another idea. Instead of trying to prove that her ankle was fine, she started changing the way the points were played. She began looking for earlier contact, shorter exchanges, more aggressive returns, more pressure on the first few shots. In other words, she did not simply try to run better. She tried to make running less necessary. And that is a completely different solution. Think about what McNally had expected. She had identified the physical weakness. She could attack it. But suddenly, the match was no longer giving her the same opportunities. Alex was taking time away. She was trying to dictate before McNally could build the long rally she wanted. And that forced McNally to solve a new problem. The injury was still there, but it was no longer controlling every point. That is why this match became so fascinating. Because Alex was not winning by pretending nothing had happened. She was winning by accepting the problem and changing her tennis around it. And if you love Alex Eala and want to see how far this incredible journey can go, hit that subscribe button and comment Alex below. And tell us how far you think she can go from here. Now, the third set became a completely different mental battle. McNally knew Alex was vulnerable. Alex knew McNally knew it. Every time Alex moved toward that ankle, there was a question hanging over the point. Would it hold? Could Alex change direction? Could she defend another ball? Could she still attack? But Alex kept playing, and that is where her composure became just as important as her shots. She did not allow the injury to become an excuse. She did not allow the second set loss to become a psychological collapse. And she did not allow McNally's comeback to convince her that the match was already gone. Instead, Alex kept searching for the next opportunity. The deciding set became a battle of small margins. One good return, one aggressive shot, one missed opportunity, one point that could change the direction of the match. And eventually, Alex began to create separation. She found the moments she needed and closed the deciding set 6-4. After 2 hours and 38 minutes, the match was hers. But that final score does not explain why this victory was so interesting. The real story was what happened between the points. McNally had entered the match with a plan. She had found an apparent weakness. She had successfully used it to win the second set. And yet, when the match reached its most important stage, Alex found a way to make that weakness less useful. That is the kind of adjustment that can change how opponents prepare for you. Because talent is one thing. Having a dangerous forehand is one thing. Being a left-hander with difficult angles is one thing. But what happens when an opponent discovers a weakness and you immediately find another way to win? That is where players start becoming much harder to beat. And this is also why McNally's perspective matters. She was not simply facing an injured player trying to survive. She was dealing with an opponent who could recognize what was happening and adjust. That is a completely different challenge. The match also showed something about Alex's mental development. Earlier in a career, a young player can become trapped by the score, lose a set, and confidence drops. Pick up an injury, and concentration disappears. Feel an opponent gaining momentum, and suddenly every point feels bigger. But Alex kept returning to the same basic task. Find next point. Find the next opening. Find a next solution. That mentality is becoming one of the most interesting parts of her rise. Because Alex is now being tested in situations where talent alone is not enough. She is being asked to win when the conditions are uncomfortable. And every time she survives one of those situations, she adds something to her game that cannot simply be measured by a ranking number. There is another important detail here. McNally was not some opponent who simply stopped fighting after the first set. She had already shown that she could respond. She took the second set. She had Alex dealing with a physical issue. She had momentum. That makes Alex's third set response even more meaningful. She did not have to beat an opponent who was already beaten. She had to beat an opponent who had just taken control of the match. And she did. That is why the ankle became almost a strange twist in the story. At first, it looked like the injury would explain why Alex might lose. Instead, it forced Alex to demonstrate something else. Adaptability, the ability to change patterns, the ability to shorten points, the ability to stay composed, and the ability to keep believing in a match after losing the second set. Those qualities become increasingly important as a player moves deeper into the WTA level, because eventually opponents will know your strengths. They will study your patterns. They will look for your weaknesses. They will arrive with a plan specifically designed to stop you. The question is no longer simply, how good is Alex Eala? The more interesting question is, what happens when someone finally finds a way to disrupt Alex's normal game? Against McNally, we got part of the answer. Alex adjusted. She changed the problem, and she found a way through. That may be one of the most encouraging signs of all, because Alex does not need every match to look the same. She does not need to dominate from the first ball to the last. Sometimes, the biggest victories come when everything goes wrong and you still find a way to finish. The first set was confidence. The second set was adversity. The third set was adaptation. And the final result was another important step in Alex Eala's development. But now comes the question that should interest every Alex fan. If she can learn to win matches when she is not physically at her best, what happens when she enters a big match completely healthy, confident, and in full control of her game? That is where this story becomes bigger than one victory. Because opponents are not only going to have to prepare for Alex's left-handed game anymore. They're going to have to prepare for the player who can change her strategy when their plan starts working. And that is a much harder player to solve. Caty McNally may have found the weakness, but Alex found the answer. The ankle created the problem. McNally created the pressure. And Alex created the adjustment. That is why this match matters. Not because Alex had an easy path to victory, but because she showed she could still find a winning path when the easy one disappeared. And if this is what Alex Eala is learning to do at just 21, the next question is obvious. How dangerous could she become when this part of her game gets even better? If you want to follow Alex's next chapter, subscribe to Tennis Hive. And tell me in the comments, how far do you think Alex Eala can go from here?